Colorado has quite a few problems right now. They have the offensive line, the defensive line, who's going to coach this, who's going to coach that. But their biggest problem right now is their language when it comes to NIL.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borber. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free, and we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for making us your first listen. I'm Kevin Borber. We are talking about NIL, Travis Hunter, the recruiting and transfer portal news on Colorado, and there's a lot to dive into. Over the past, I would say, week and a half-ish, because the first comments that stood out to me were made 8 days ago, and now I'm confused even more. Realistically, let me just dive into NIL real quick. If you don't know, I'll tell you. NIL allows for athletes to benefit off of their name, image, and likeness. So basically, they can sign endorsement deals, whether it be with Beats by Dre, Nike, California Almonds, whatever it may be. They could sign a deal. They could advertise for a company. It could be a local restaurant for all they care. Whatever it may be, athletes, the possibilities are endless. NIL has become a big tool in college football, and it's basically become a who's who of who could throw out the most money to get the biggest recruits. And obviously, we saw Texas A&M get the best recruiting class in college football history. And a lot of that was allegedly, because we don't want to get any lawsuits or anything, was allegedly purchased via NIL. And everybody knows in college football that you need NIL. Jim Mora from UConn the other day had a meltdown because he was talking about how people are being the curse word B. Obviously, we're not going to curse on this family-friendly show, and complaining about how UConn's not winning, but at the same time, they don't invest in the program. Matt Rule the other day said that people get upset when programs aren't competing with the top programs, but then they're only investing in it like it's a middle to bottom tier program in that conference. And so Coach Prime the other day addressed NIL in a way that kind of shows his old school mentality, but at the same time, I think it's a mindset that's kind of confusing because obviously Shadur, Travis, Shiloh are heavily involved with NIL, and I don't know about a lot of the other Colorado guys, like what their deals are, mostly just because I see Shadur and Shiloh and Travis everywhere. So I know that they have some deals going their way, but either way, he was talking about recruiting, and he said, "We are not an ATM. That's not going to happen here. If you come to Colorado to play football for me and the Colorado Buffaloes, it's because you really want to play football and receive a wonderful education. All the business stuff will be handled on the back end if it's the case. But we are not an ATM. You're not going to come here to get rich unless you're really coming here with a plan to go to the NFL and get your degree." And then he's made it clear that people have come to Boulder, Colorado with hopes of just getting money. And he said, "We're not going to buy anybody whatsoever. That's how we approach it. We have tremendous needs. I'm pretty sure everybody in the country knows what we need and how much we need, and that's not a secret." And then he says, "We want players who want us." Trying to convince somebody and doing that, being held hostage financially, we ain't with that. We want players who want to be a Colorado Buffalo, which I totally get. Totally makes sense. And if that's your thoughts, that's your feelings, perfect. I feel like obviously if you're showing that you're more than willing to be a spender, that helps out immensely. But if you want to be the team that's like, you know what, you come here and you could get NIL once you start playing well, perfect. Because I think that's the message that Colorado has kind of sent is if you play well, you'll get your NIL. And it's like, okay, then you're not going to try to finagle Colorado of $100,000 or whatever the money is. But the other day, 3 days ago, he makes kind of a backtrack statement, if you will. He said, obviously, just like I read, he said Colorado's not an ATM, and he will recruit players who want to play for the Buffalo football program and not just NIL. And he said, and when he was asked about it, he said, "We're getting there. We definitely need giving." You know what I mean? It's unfortunate to say this, but some kids cost. If you start looking up at some of the top teams in the country, you see what was spent. And so when I hear that, it's like, wait, what? You need money now to get these kids to come here? So I think that there needs to be like a little bit of an NIL discussion in Boulder because realistically, you don't want to have to be forking over $1 million to get recruits. I would never like if I had $1 million, I wouldn't even care if it was I don't even know the second coming of LeBron James, Joe Montana, whoever. I would not fork over $1 million up front to get someone to go to a school because one, with these recruits, you never know. Two, as we saw with Texas A&M, these kids come, they get the money, then they leave. So NIL is a whole thing. I feel like there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made to NIL, but what needs to be made adjustment wise for Deion Sanders in Colorado is their verbiage, their approach to NIL. I think they need obviously they know it's important, but in the span of a week and a half to say we're not an ATM and all of a sudden kind of be like, yeah, we need more money, we need support, we need to players are expensive. We can't just buy these players. It's like what are we saying? Are we using NIL to get people or are we not? And I think that needs to be made more clear. I think Colorado needs to make a more of a conscientious effort. Obviously, NIL support comes from collectives, fans, whoever. So it's a team effort. It also helps if you have a lot of wealthy boosters who could just fork over some money as well. But I think that the NIL circuit at Colorado right now is a little confusing. I think it needs to be addressed in some form because Colorado has a chance to make some big moves. I think realistically that they could address a lot of the problems if they had NIL, if they had the proper NIL stuff. And right now I'm not seeing that. And that could be an issue for them moving forward. But nonetheless, I think that Coach Prime will figure it out. I just wanted to bring attention to that because it's a little confusing. Obviously, everything there's a reason for everything. And so I feel like Coach Prime's a very calculated person, not a bad way, just like he knows what he's saying when he's saying it. And I think that he kind of knows they need to play the NIL game, but right now that's not what they're not capable. They don't have the capabilities of playing the NIL game like some other programs. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. As the weather gets cooler, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options that include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So if you want to get in on this fun action, go to fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. Again, it is fanduel.com/LOCKEDON and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. It's your team every day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Kevin Borba. We're talking about Travis Hunter, Colorado's best player, arguably a top 4 or 5 player in college football. Plays both ways. He's a star. He plays receiver, plays defensive back, does a little bit of everything. He has his own show that he did with Bleacher Report, or that he does with Bleacher Report, excuse me. And he made it clear what they want to accomplish in 2024. And so he does this show, like I said, on Bleacher Report, where he live streams. And he said, next year, best believe we're winning more than 4 games. He said, it was a hard season for us, a group of men coming together that we never seen before. Next year, best believe we're winning more than 4 games. We're coming different next year, for sure. Expectations for next year, just go out and ball, try to become the highest draft pick I can, try to win something with my team, try to get to the national championship, try to get to a bowl game, just try to get to everything we didn't get this year. And I think obviously that's not a crazy statement by any means. That's not like oh my goodness, Travis Hunter says that he wants to win football games. But it shows the buy-in. It shows the want to. And I think that a lot of people, when they think of this Colorado team, they only think of the personalities. They think of, okay, Deion Sanders is getting his attention. He wins Sports Person of the Year. Congrats to Deion Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is getting NIL deals left and right. Shiloh Sanders getting NIL deals left and right. They're getting social media followers. They're getting clout. They're getting attention on TV. And there's a lot of questions of like, do they want to win football games? Do they care? And one, I think that's a stupid question, but here we are. And I think for their best player to not only show that one, he's bought in, but two, that he has goals, that he has lofty goals, and they plan on turning it around. I think this Colorado team ran into a few problems this year. Outside of like not like obviously they have problem in the trenches. They ran into personality problems. They ran into culture problems. They ran into desire problems, personality problems. You bring in, I think it was like 80 new players was the final number, or not 80, but around 80-ish new players. That's a lot of personalities. Obviously, Coach Prime and company brought those guys in because they thought they were talented. But in the transfer portal, you don't have a lot of time to figure out if this guy's a culture fit or not. And so you bring in 50 new transfers plus recruits, and it's like, okay, we have a lot of mixed people here. We have a lot of mixed backgrounds. We have a lot of mixed, like, oh, I want to do this one way, a lot of mixed personalities. And I think that gets difficult. Culture wise, I think it's hard to establish a culture when nobody's been around. Like, obviously, Coach Prime and his staff did the best they could to establish a culture, but they clearly had some issues. You're got guys tweeting about selfish play. The running back Smoke he tweeted not too long ago, if we didn't have selfish play, we could have been undefeated. You have guys kind of hinting that Colorado doesn't love football. Coach Prime was constantly talking about what these guys' plan for football, life after football was, because they were obviously treating being at Colorado as if it was the end all be all. And honestly, I know it's a great opportunity to be a college athlete. I know it's an opportunity that a lot of people dream of, but you have to realize it's not like that's not your life isn't over at 24. Like college football is not the peak of your life. It shouldn't be, at least. And Coach Prime is constantly talking to these guys about, you know what, we gotta have a plan for life after football. This isn't everything. And then he's talking about how much do they love the game? How much do you, after the Stanford game, it went viral in his video. How much do you love the game of football? He asked his team. He questioned his team to the media. He said, I don't know if they love football. I don't know if they want to be here. Stuff like that. And so Colorado had a lot of issues. I think this will be kind of fixed in the long run, because I think that there's a lot of things that they need to kind of address, staff wise. I think players being around for another year will help. But Travis Hunter being the best player, being the leader of the team, and being like, we have goals and we're going to accomplish these goals, that's huge. I think it shows that there is a good foundation. They just need to build on it. And I think realistically, they have a lot of work to go, or a lot of room for growth. And Travis Hunter talking about this and just kind of showcasing that while people are focused on the attention that they get and all the hoopla, he shows that they care. And I think that's important for this program. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the latest in recruiting, transfer portal, and everything in between when we come back. Welcome back. It's time to talk about recruiting, the transfer portal, and everything in between for your Colorado Buffaloes here on Locked On Buffs. It's your team every day for free. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Okay, they have a big recruiting weekend this week. So the Buffaloes will be hosting, and let me tell you, it's a big one. They are hosting an Oregon commit who is a huge bodied offensive lineman. I think obviously you don't want to have to play freshman right away, but it doesn't hurt when he's a big fella like this guy. Jaquan McRoy, Pinson, Alabama native, excuse me. He's ranked as the 78th player according to 24/7 Sports, sixth offensive tackle, sixth best player in Alabama. He is, and buckle up, 6'8", 365. Has offers from Oregon, Colorado, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ole Miss, whoever, and who's who. And this is kind of the breakdown of him from Cooper Pategna from 24/7 Sports. Possesses massive frame with limited to no growth potential to add weight to his frame. Flashes good athleticism at the right and left tackle position. Displays good foot and body quickness for his size. Shows the ability to explode in both run and pass sets. Has a tendency to play a little high off the line of scrimmage, but overcompensates with size and frame. More of a leaner at the point of attack, but flashes some power in hands and ability to naturally move defenders off the line of scrimmage. Shows the ability to play in space at the second level and doesn't appear to be limited to only playing in a power scheme. So he's kind of a diverse guy that can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so that he's coming to Colorado this weekend. I know they're also in great standing for King Joseph Edwards, the edge rusher out of Georgia, recruiting. And this is, I know you guys don't want to hear this. I talked about losing Antoine Hill, and everybody was like, oh, that's fine. They have Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood was crystal ball to LSU by Steve Wiltfong, which is kind of like the kiss of death on a recruit. I don't want to say the kiss of death, but for another program, like for instance, this is the kiss of death for Colorado, because obviously Steve Wiltfong doesn't place predictions unless he's fairly confident, and so he placed one not too long ago for Bryce Underwood. So it looks like Colorado will be missing out on him. Draylon Miller, the former Texas A&M commit, he is also expected to take a trip to Colorado. He is kind of I think he's, I don't say another kind of one of those two-way star potential guys, but this is what they had to say about Draylon Miller. Takes his first official visit of the month this weekend after visiting Colorado for visited Oregon during the Oregon State game. Excuse me, I said he was visiting this week. He said we've always heard that they're going through the process slowly. They're looking at all the options. And yeah, I think Steve Wiltfong said that he likes where they stand with him when he was doing his spot with Adam Tiger from 24/7. So Draylon Miller, another guy to look out for. And then the transfer portal. This is where obviously Colorado is making their bread and butter. It's kind of it's a risky thing. I talked about it because I wanted to show you guys this. Brian Howell had a great breakdown of Colorado's roster build. And I think this needs to be put in perspective because right now, Colorado does not have a lot of open spots. He said, by my count, Colorado's currently filled 64 scholarships. They also have 9 commits, which brings that total to 73, which leaves 12 open spots because you're allowed to have 85 players on scholarship. So that means that they're going to have a lot of departures, a lot of guys who didn't play, or a lot of guys who maybe are encouraged to explore elsewhere. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Colorado needs to improve, and this is going to be the way they do it. I'm not sure uh, what kind of which way they're going to go, but either way, obviously the portal is coming. I don't know if they're going to lean. When I say which way, I don't know if that means they're going to lean like recruiting or portal wise, but these are some of the guys that they've offered. This one's interesting. Jake Wiley, who transferred from Colorado, played in all 12 games this season at UCLA. As an offensive lineman, 6'6", 310. Good experience. Could be worth maybe reuniting. Who knows? Maybe he gets welcomed back. Cordell Russell from TCU. He's another interesting target. I know Jalen Connors from Arizona State's an interesting target. They've offered Macklin from North Texas. Jamori Macklin had 57 catches for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Cousin of former Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, by the way. They offered him. I know they offered Joey Slackman, who's currently, I think he's a top 5 player in the portal now. Everything keeps getting moved around because obviously they kind of, there's so many guys entering the portal as we try to figure out who's going where and stuff. They offered Leo Hannon. This was a recruit 2025 quarterback. So obviously they have plans. EJ Smith is an interesting candidate at running back. He is kind of his dad, Emmett Smith. Yes, Emmett Smith Jr. is his name. He was hanging out with Deion Sanders back in I think it was earlier in the season. San Diego State, Cade Bennett, offensive lineman. Maybe he comes to Colorado. There's just a lot of options out there. And I think there's a lot of needs for Colorado. And obviously they have a lot of realistic issues. They have a lot of, like, they need to figure this out. Otherwise, things could get rough. And I'm just trying to make sure I've covered all the offers before we go. They offered Justin Myers. He earned All Conference USA honorable mention, offensive lineman. Who else? Southern Miss offensive tackle Jaquan Smith. He's a big body. It's no. What are we doing here? They got some people someone said Justin Mayers, excuse me, I said his name wrong, was listed as a fullback. That's not true. He's an offensive lineman. So they've been offering offensive linemen. North Carolina State and Colorado are after a JUCO linebacker named Keaton Thomas. So there's a lot of guys that Colorado's in the mix for. Whether they put them together, whether they get all these guys in Boulder or not, to be seen. But they're making moves. They're going after guys in the trenches, which is what I said they needed to do. They need to land realistically. If they're going to go after the portal, if this is their method, if the offensive line being rebuilt through the portal is their method, they need to land 5 guys. That's my number, because realistically, they need 3 of those guys to start. So you're giving yourself a chance that of the 5 guys you land, and that's at least 5, 60% of them are going to succeed. And realistically, that number is probably going to be 2 out of 5, just because of how difficult it is to hit on portal linemen. So 40% of your linemen are going to hit. So they need to land 5 or 6 guys and hope that 3 hit just to have a chance of fielding a good offense line. And it's going to be difficult. But Coach Prime and company, they're figuring things out. They got a big offseason ahead of them, and I look forward to covering it every step of the way. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys on Monday. There's no game this weekend, so I won't have a live stream this weekend. I will see you guys on Monday, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. This has been Locked on Buffs. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts.